All right, Dave. Looks like we are back again. Welcome, welcome, everyone. I hope everyone is well. Dave, how are you today?
I am good. This is so exciting. We've not yet had the opportunity to do this together. This has always been CR and myself, or CR and somebody else, or me by myself. Sometimes we've actually done that. So, very excited to be with you today, Destiny.
CR is going to be super jealous. Watch.
Yeah,
Sure.
always going to be tough. Afraid you're going to take his spot over there. I know it's a job that he really likes. So, yeah, he better be careful. Stay away. If he stays away on vacation too long, you might just have it all figured out, wrapped up, and he'll never get access
He's
again.
never going to come back. Exactly. All right. Well, we want to thank everyone for joining us live. And for those on the replay, thank you for being here with us today. If this is your first time, welcome. We are always here talking retirement with our expert, Dave Hall. Now, he'll be answering your questions and giving some really good advice to help you take action and make some change. Dave, I've put together a list of questions from our website, social media, a few webinars. And guys, if you have any questions for Dave, go ahead and put them in the chat so that we can get them answered for you. All right. So,
Sounds good. And before I let you ask that first question, though, Destiny, I've got to introduce you. So, Destiny has been working with us now for 6 or 8 months. She does all the hosting of our webinars. So, if you've been on one of our webinars, you know her by now because she does an amazing job there. And with CR being out of town, we thought, hey, what a great opportunity to get her in front of the camera, to get back and have her ask the questions this week. So, please, those of you that are with us today, make sure you welcome her. Very excited to have her with us today.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you. I'm super nervous. All right. So you ready to answer some questions?
You bet. Let's get started.
All righty. So we got our first question from Miss Betty, and she is a CPA. How do interest rates affect my retirement portfolio?
Betty, good question. And it's going to affect you in various ways, depending really on how you invest. Now, being a CPA myself and having worked with thousands of CPAs over the last number of decades, what I found is that by nature, CPAs are conservative, which means I know there are many of them out there, and maybe you're one of them, Betty, that has put a bunch of your money into cash right now, believing we're going to have a downturn in the market, which we're experiencing to some level. There are many top economists believe that amount's going to go down even further. So they put their money in cash. Well, if we've got low interest rates, we aren't keeping up with inflation in those accounts. And it's been proven to happen over the last year. Looks like over the next year, we're going to have high inflation, even though interest rates are going up. But in all, if we can get the interest rates up a little bit higher to where they're standard, maybe 4 or 5, 6%, usually, and get inflation back down, usually those interest rates will help us because we can put our safe money in the bank accounts and then put our other money into stocks, bonds, principal protected products to get us where we need to be in retirement.
All right. And just to piggyback off of Betty's question, I have a personal question of my own, Dave.
Okay.
Could you explain retirement portfolio a little bit for those who are younger like me who may not know?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we're talking about when we look at a retirement portfolio is really everything that's in there. You could compare it, maybe a good explanation would be a tool shed. If you've ever gone to your grandma or grandpa's place or mom and dad's, and they have this big tool shed, and inside there may be rakes and hoes and shovels and the lawnmower and all these things that they're going to use to take care of their yard, or maybe their house. Maybe there's much tools in there as well. That's really what our retirement portfolio is. It's everything that we put into our savings accounts is for retirement. So it may include bank accounts, it may include stocks, it may include principal protected products like annuities and life insurance, but it's all of that consolidated together. Once we put it all together, that's our retirement portfolio.
Gotcha. Thank you. All
You're
right.
welcome.
So our next question is from Catherine, who is also a CPA. Is 58 too early to do a Roth conversion?
Absolutely not, Catherine. When we look at it, there's really only one thing you need to look at if you're going to do a Roth conversion, and that is, what do you think tax rates will be in the future? If you believe they're going to be higher than they are today, and that could be even at age 95, if you were saying someone is age 95 and thought that the rates were going to be higher for their kids when they pass the assets on to them because they may not spend them all, it makes sense to do a conversion. If you're 20 or 30 and you believe that tax rates are going to be higher in the future, as I do, then it's a good time to do conversions based upon where you are compared to where you expect to be in the future. So 58 definitely is not too early. My recommendation, we've got taxes going up for sure, 2026, January 1st. And then for me, 2030 is the year I believe we're going to have some major issues. So it's my belief, and what I push those I work with to do, and I educate, go get those conversions done now. If you're going to do them as many as possible during the next 4 years, but definitely during the next 8 years before we hit that 2030 period.
Sounds good. All right. So our next question comes from Amir, who is 59. Does my Roth IRA have a required minimum distribution?
It does not, Amir. It's the only retirement account when we look at the traditional retirement accounts that we have our traditional IRA, traditional 401k, we've got our SEP plans, simple plans, all those retirement plans. It's the only one that does not have a required minimum distribution. So I will tell you, if you've got a Roth 401k, it still has a required minimum distribution. So for many people, definitely I'd recommend that that money get moved into the Roth IRA so you don't have to worry about meeting these requirements each year.
And Dave, what is the difference between a Roth IRA and a Roth 401k?
The 401k set up by the employer. Unfortunately, all of America does not have access to these. I find it very sad that we would allow people to get access to a great tool, but if you have the wrong job, you don't have access to it. You're not going to be able to get a 401k plan or a 403b or a 457. There are different terms that are used depending on nonprofit or government agencies or for-profit businesses. But as we look at the IRAs available to everyone, the problem is they have very limited contribution limits, meaning you can only put $6,000 a year into these if you're under age 50. Someone like yourself, if you're like me, I'm 51, I can put $7,000 into these. That's not a lot of money when we look at what we need for retirement as we look out to the future.
Thank you. All right. So our next question is coming in from Scotty, who is a CPA. What is the best age to purchase long-term care insurance?
Yesterday, whatever you were a year ago, that would have been the best age. Now, at some level, I'm being funny there, but we've got to understand when we look at long-term care insurance, the sooner we buy it, and especially if we can lock in our premiums, the cheaper it's going to be. Not only because as we age, it becomes more expensive because we've got less time to be able to save for it, but from a long-term care side, the cost of these products are going up consistently every year. And so from a insurance side, they're having to raise the premiums each year. So we want to buy these things as soon as we can. Now, I will tell you, Scotty, if you are going to buy a long-term care policy, I'm a big fan of using permanent life insurance with a chronic illness rider to solve the issue. But if you do buy a long-term care policy, please make sure you have a set time you're going to pay for that. Could be 1 year. If you do, going to be very expensive. Some people are doing that. Could be 10 years, maybe 15 years, but please do not go into a policy that at age 85, when you need the insurance, you're still making payments and probably don't have the money you need to keep up with the payments. So the insurance lapses right when you need it, and you end up having to go into a Medicaid funded facility.
Dave, what are some of the things that long-term care insurance provides?
Yeah, a number of benefits that can come out of there. The biggest one really being some certainty of how these costs will be covered if you end up in a long-term care event. Now, many Americans do not realize the risk a long-term care event is to their retirement. We look at it and we think, oh, what's the chance of becoming disabled? It can't be that much. We look around, don't see a lot of disabled people. Well, the thing we forget, the disabled people usually aren't going out into public when they get to this age. They're in a nursing home or a rest home somewhere. 35% chance we're going to end up permanently disabled. That long-term care insurance helps cover those costs because it's not cheap. Unfortunately, when we get other people involved in our lives taking care of us, it's not cheap. If you have a house and you've ever had to have someone come take care of your yard or your pool or clean your house, obviously you look at it and say, okay, well, that's 2-3 hours a week, whatever it may be, $150, $250. I can live with that. Well, now take someone that's got to care for you 24/7 and realize how expensive that can get. This insurance is going to help cover those costs.
Gotcha. All right. So our next question is coming from Miss Patricia, and she is 68 years old. Will working part-time after I retire impact my Social Security benefits?
Yeah, so I'm going to answer this question, but I don't know, Destiny, if you can see Elliot's question in the live chat. So we're going to answer this question, but after we get done, if you can't, I'll pull it up. But we want
I
to
got it.
definitely address Elliot's questions here in the live chat. So Patricia, because of your age, working part-time or full-time or any time is not going to affect your Social Security benefits because you are already at full retirement age. If you retired this year, that was 66 and 4 months. Looking if you're 68, man, probably your full retirement age looking at it was right at 66. You would have retired sometime back in 2020, which the full retirement age there was 66. So it's not going to affect you. But if you're someone who claims your benefits early, let's say at age 62, yes, if you work, and again, part-time, depending on what you're getting paid, how much your work may not impact it, but you make over just under $20,000 a year prior to your full retirement age year, and just around $50,000 a year once you hit your full retirement age year up until full retirement age, you're going to have some issues with benefits being taken away for a period of time. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to lose them forever. They just stop giving you those benefits. And then later on, when you qualify again for Social Security, you'll get that money added back into your ongoing payments.
Cool. All right. Let's get to Elliot's question.
You're missing the best part. Elliot's first one was, hello, Destinies. Welcome you to the show. Glad to have you.
Elliot, thank
See
you.
how humble she is. She doesn't want to get out here and say, hey, this is about me. People care that I'm here. Well, Elliot, thank you for welcoming her to the show. And we're happy to answer your question.
Thank you very much, Elliot. All right. So he's asking, what is your opinion on Congress raising taxes prior to 2026?
I think they're going to have a real hard time making this happen, especially when you look at what's going on right now. I mean, they can't seem to get on the same page with anything. We've got so many issues they're dealing with, and I'm not saying which one should take precedence, but we've got wars overseas. We've got inflation that's through the roof. We've got stock market that's crashing. We've got these situations where we've got this gun violence that's going on. All these things are trying to figure out what they deal with. Unfortunately, I don't see any guideline that would allow them to raise taxes. Their opportunity to do this was Build Back Better, and we know that didn't pass. And the other day, I saw it on the news that the senator from West Virginia or from Virginia, Manchin, I believe is his name. Sorry, son, I can't think of his name, but he's the one that really was against it before. He admitted, he came out and said, hey, Build Back Better's dead. I'm never voting for that. And as we look at those programs, it was to increase benefits and raise taxes. I just don't see it happening. Now, it could on the wealthiest segment of the population, but I definitely don't see it happening on the middle class. Now, all of that being said, at some point, we either have to cut spending or raise taxes. So unfortunately, as a group of humans that are trying to look out for our best interest long term, some point we've got to come to a realization that one of these things, two things has to happen. Personally, I would rather we cut spending and allow us to live our lives and succeed the way we have always succeeded for hundreds of years, is being productive and working together. But if that doesn't happen, at some point we'll have to increase these taxes, and we're just going to have to all get on board with it.
All right. So our next question is coming from Isaiah, and he is also a CPA. How can I safeguard myself from tax risk in retirement?
The biggest thing you can do, Isaiah, is to make sure you fill the three buckets we talk about in our various presentations. Taxable, 6 months basic living expenses. Tax deferred, if you're a single individual, $250,000 or less. Many of you, it may be even as low as zero. If you're a married couple, $500,000 or less, maybe zero. I'll talk about why that is. And then the rest of your income should be in the tax-free bucket, Roth accounts, permanent life insurance, those type of products. Now, why do we want these amounts in our tax deferred? We have a standard deduction that if we use correctly, when we put money into that tax deferred account, we got a tax benefit. Now we're pulling it out. If we use our standard deduction, we got a double win. You don't get many of those with the government. I've worked the IRS for 25 years. Very seldom do you get a double win from them, but this is one of those opportunities where you could do that. And then if that income's low enough, it will not cause your Social Security to be taxed either. So again, depending on what other income you have, if you've got a pension, rental property, those type of things, you may have to have a zero in that tax deferred account. But for those of you that are able to move money around where you need it to be, maybe able to get $250,000 in there for a single person, $450,000, $500,000 in there for a married couple, and then use that standard deduction to your benefit.
Sounds good. All right. So our next question is coming from Tamra, who is 50. How can I save for retirement if I started my own business?
Tamara, great question. And this is one that people struggle with. If you've got your own business, you know that it, sometimes can be paycheck to paycheck. You may be in periods of time where you've got a bunch of money coming in. If you're a tax preparer, for example, you may have times like March and April where you're making all kinds of money. And then the summer hits and all of a sudden you're not even covering your bills for a few months. And then we get to another deadline and the revenue goes back up. It can be very hard to make commitments to yourself on what you should save. Now, my recommendation would be to go into a solo 401k. Of all options that are out there, from what I've seen, that is the best option. It'll allow you to put money into the Roth account. Not going to cost you a fortune to put together either. One of the other things we want to be careful of is how much we spend to put our retirement accounts together. We don't want them to cost so much that whatever we're putting in, the rate of return is just going to pay the fees of the advisors. That's not what we want to have happen either. So, Tamara, I'd recommend a solo 401k. Now, they are talking about changing the SEP plan with Secure Act 2.0, which has been passed by Congress. Just did a podcast on this topic, but it just was passed by Congress, waiting to be passed by the Senate, talking about creating a Roth option inside of a SEP, or self-employed pension plan. So that may be another option, but we'll have to wait and see what happens later in the year for that one.
Dave, what exactly is a solo 401k?
Yeah, so it's a 401k for those that really is themselves or their spouse or their business partner. So it's not quite what, if you look solo, hey, I'm going to go out and I'm going to climb solo. I'm doing it all myself. It's all about me. That's not really fully the way it is. Now, you don't have many options to add other people like, yourself. You're an employee of our company. We could not have a solo 401k plan because of the relationship we have. But if my wife or if a business partner, someone like CR, they were the only ones inside of that company, we could put together a solo 401k that would allow us to, self-manage that. We have the opportunity to self-manage as well as have lower fees. But once you get employees involved, you would have to put together a traditional 401k, which there are many companies out there now that are putting reduced fee 401k plans together as well. So they're not as expensive as they've been in the past. But it's really designed for companies like Tamara, where she doesn't have other employees and is just trying to figure out how she can save money for herself.
Cool. All right. Our next question is coming from Darren, who is 63. Would I be penalized if I withdrew my 401k at 65?
You're not going to get penalized at all. No, when you look at it, 59.5 is where the penalty cutoff is. And there are some provisions so you could start earlier than that. You could start as early as 55 if it were your last job and you were getting money out of that 401k. So understand you may be able to bring it up closer even earlier, but at 65, you're way beyond the 59.5, no restrictions. Now, obviously there would be tax if it was coming out of a tax deferred 401k that you would need to be aware of and have to pay. And then there may be some impact if you're taking the money out to do conversions or those type of things, maybe some impact on your Medicare benefits. You may be paying a little bit more. So definitely something, Darren, and although you can do it, there's no penalties. I would recommend you make sure you get planning or get advice on how you're going to do this so that you optimize the transition of this money from that 401k to wherever you're planning on taking it.
So if you withdraw your 401k before 59.5, it would be penalized. And how is that penalty determined?
Yeah, so it's a 10% penalty, and it's really determined with the 1099-R that you get that the company you've invested with. When you set everything up, you give them your age and that information, and it's going to identify, and then the IRS, they know your age as well, can identify that you took that distribution out, and then that you would be subject to a 10% penalty on there. So, and every once in a while, there are rules that would allow you to not be penalized. Maybe it's a distribution out that they have them to buy a new home. There's some other options out there that you could take some money out of these accounts without having to have penalties, but they would be because of the exception. It definitely would not be the rule.
All right. Our next question comes from Shannon. What are the qualifications for reversed mortgages?
Wow. Now that is a loaded question. Unfortunately, we've got about 10 minutes left. I would take that 10 plus another 10 really to be able to answer these questions. But let me give you just some general guidelines. Number one, you have to own the home. Obviously, you're not going to be able to put it on a rental property if that home's owned by your parents, or you've got a group of people that own that home for whatever reason. You're not going to be able to put a reverse mortgage on that house. You do have to be at age 62 to be able to get a reverse mortgage. And then you also need to be in really just a current good financial position. Now, that isn't like when you get a forward facing loan where they're going to calculate your income and say, look, we have to have 40% of this income to make sure it's available to pay off this debt, because a reverse mortgage, there you're not paying anything off. That's the value of a reverse mortgage. You're getting money that's then accruing, and then when you pass away or at some time in the future, if you sell the house, you pay off that reverse mortgage and pay that debt back down. So when you look at it, you've got to be at least age 62 to be able to get into one of these. And then again, have that financial stability. Really just mean, hey, I've been paying my bills for the last 12 months. This isn't a last resort that, hey, someone told me on the news that I could get a reverse mortgage, or there was an ad out there, and so I'm going to get a reverse mortgage now. And this is my last resort to be able to save my finances. That's what they're trying to prevent, because they want to ensure that you're using them wisely. So 62, own your home. Have to have some basic financial stability going on there. And then you got to go through the process. And the recommendation for me would be to go through a home equity conversion mortgage. That's the government-backed reverse mortgage product. You would have to go through counseling. You would meet with a mortgage broker who would go through and appraise your home and make sure you had enough equity in there. That's another big thing you're going to want to look at, is making sure you have enough equity to make it worth it, because you can't have any existing debt. So if you are in a position where you've got to use most of your reverse mortgage to pay off previous debt, there's really nothing left for you to take out, to use, to spend, or do something with. Probably going to spend a whole lot of money just to transition into maybe not a better position.
All right. So it looks like we have another question from Cole, age 55. Cole, I'm sorry. How can I begin diversifying my retirement assets?
The biggest thing that you need to do is to sit down and have a plan put together, because again, when we look at this, we're looking at a variety of different tools. I do a lot of yard work now. It just gets me out trying to get green grass. It's working in some parts of my lawn, others it's not, but there's different tools that you're using along the way. But again, I have to plan out, what is it that I'm trying to accomplish? Am I trying to plant trees? Am I putting bushes in? Am I making my grass greener during the springtime, the summertime, or the fall? All of these things. And then we got to use different products, different tools to do that. So when you look at it on your side, Cole, what we're wanting is a plan put together where, number one, we understand what you want your money to do while you're alive. And then number two, what is it that you want your money to do once you passed on? Then we can figure out where these assets should start going and where we should diversify them out. I mean, you could easily diversify your retirement by putting it into the stock market, into diversified mutual funds or ETFs or those type of products, but that's probably not the full diversity you need. And I think while you're asking the question, you realize there's got to be more to it than there is, but it's going to require a plan and understanding what you're trying to accomplish.
Sounds good.
And what you're comfortable with. I guess that's another thing I would say. Again, there's times that we'll recommend products for people that I would absolutely put in my retirement, but someone is not comfortable with that themselves. And again, if you can't get your arms around it and it's just going to be an aggravation to you for the next 20 years, really no need to just put a thorn in someone's side, even though it may be the best thing that ever happened for them, if every morning they're going to wake up and wish they hadn't have done whatever that happened to be that ended up being done. Which I don't know if you see there, Elliot's got another comment there that if you can pull that up real quick, that would be awesome.
All right. His comment states, there are also tax incentives to setting up retirement plans, referring back to Tamara's question.
Yeah, absolutely great comment, Elliot. And they're talking about increasing those incentives with Secure Act 2.0. Now, I have some of my problems, and again, it's probably more a personal issue. But when we look at some of what the government does, I'm not sure it always helps the people it was intended to help. Like with the new changes of adding more credits and getting people more benefit, unfortunately, what that opens the door to is many plan advisors to charging more, saying, hey, we're going to charge you twice as much because we're going to allow you to get all this money back from the government that you end up paying us, which again, you're just swapping dollars. You're not getting any benefit from. So that's something we also need to be a little careful with, but you're exactly right. There are incentives putting them together. We need to make sure we're taking advantage of those to help offset those costs to make it easier to get these plans put together.
All right. So, Dave, I have my own personal question.
Okay.
What kind of advice would you give someone like me who's about to be 35 who wants to take action but don't know where to start in retirement?
Yeah, great question. Now, two things that I would recommend for you, Destiny, when you look at it. Number one, make sure, and I know, there's parts of what I know about you that our listeners wouldn't know, and hopefully I don't share too much, but I know you've got kids. So with kids, there can always be emergencies and things that happen. That number one would be making sure you've got somewhat of an emergency fund. I know when we talk about retirement, we talk about 6 months, but it's really hard for most Americans to really put that much away in savings. It's not going to be really effective as we're going through those working years. But we need to have something there, again, whether it's $5,000 or $10,000 or whatever that ends up being in your situation. And then number two, I know, because I do have inside information as well, but you've got an employer-based 401k plan that has a match. So I would definitely recommend that also has a 401k plan or a Roth plan attached to it, that I would definitely recommend of taking advantage of that opportunity to get that money matched. And in your situation, may even, again, majority of it say, hey, let's go get that free money from the employer, which is me and CR and those of us that own it, which is fine. We're happy to do it. That we love to help our employees get to a better retirement, but to take advantage of as much of that as possible, and then try to figure out how you can get these other accounts filled up the way you need them to.
Sounds good to me. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Dave, it looks like we're a few minutes away from our 30 minutes, which means the show is about to be over. So before I let you go, is there any final thoughts you would like to give the audience?
Yeah, there absolutely is. And again, when I've done a lot of research lately, I've done a lot of soul searching lately. Really, as I look at what I do as an advisor and the impact I have. Can I educate 65 to 70,000 people on an annual basis? Our reviews come in saying this was great information. This was amazing. We'll come to any class that Dave teaches, and many people do that. And I'm glad they do. The problem that I see so many times is they're getting the information, they're loving the experience, but they're not implementing what it is that I'm talking about. And so we have created paths to be able to allow you to do that better. And I would tell you, if you've not yet taken advantage of our Getting Safely Through Retirement course, we teach it every week. It's hosted by the most amazing person on the internet. Oh, Destiny, I think that's you. Yeah, she's the host that. So she is the host of that class, 2-hour class where we talk about the risks that will destroy your retirement, and then give you strategies and a way to take action to solve that. Find out if you're going to be one of the 50% of Americans or more that are going to run out of money. And if so, when's that going to happen? I mean, if we have a general idea of when we're going to have a problem, pretty easy to prepare for those problems. We can make sure we set things in place to help us get through it, extend past it, make things last longer. Well, that's our goal, is to allow you to figure that out, stress the plan, see what happens there, and then give you strategies that will really get you where you need to be down the path. So please, those of you that are with us today or listening on replay, take action on what you're doing. Take advantage of what we really have put together. Again, education's great. These resources are amazing, but what we want you to do is understand what the risks are, understand what you need to do for your retirement, and then take action on that so you can get safely through retirement.
All right, everyone. Thank you all for joining. We are here every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Central. Hope to see you guys next week.
Okay, great job, Destiny. Great to have you. And again, I think you're back next week. CR is supposed to still be on vacation. He did have some hiccups, folks. I will tell you, never seen anyone go through so many hoops to just get on vacation. He had some passport issues. I'm sure he'll talk about it when he gets back, but he did make his flight. I saw last night. He sent me a picture. Good. He made his flight. He's on his way. I know he's overseas now. Hopefully going to enjoy 2 weeks. Part of that with family. He's originally from Sweden, I believe. I'm getting the right terms, not Switzerland, Sweden. He's originally from there, got family members there. And then he's going to go on a cruise. So he's going to have a great time with his 2 kids and his wife. Looking forward to hearing their adventures when they come back. But we'll be excited to have you back next week as we're here together answering these questions.
I will see you next week, Dave.
Okay, bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.